Welcome to I Love My Club By, with me, your host, Seamus Barry, the podcast that gives you the insight into our local games of hurling and camogie. Join us as we take a look at some of the characters around the county on I Love My Club By. Hi and welcome to I Love My Club By, the podcast that brings you closer to our local games in both camogie and hurling. I'm delighted to say this week I have the smiling assassin from Lismore, the shot stopper, Seanie Barry. Seanie, how are you?
Good, Seamus. And yourself?
I'm not too bad now. You know, it's a middle of the week, pre-season. Everything is starting to build back up. It's a good time of the year. We're seeing a stretch in the evenings. I suppose we'll go with your introduction, the smiling assassin. I don't think I've ever come across you not smiling. Are you a positive person in general?
I suppose I would be, but I have my moments as well. I know, Jesus. I suppose 90% of the time I would be fairly positive and smiling as much as possible. I suppose. Yeah, I don't know about the smiling assassin now, but a lot of lads, I suppose, from the club will probably know me for having a couple of outbursts, I suppose, during the year as well. Like so.
Well, I can certainly say I've been doing umpire the last couple of years with an official, and I've been there when you're on the goal, and you have a few outbursts, all right, in your locker. I'll give you that. We'll look at Lismore. When did you first start playing with Lismore, or was it something that was in the family? Of course, you have your brother who's anonymous in Waterford, or synonymous, sorry, I should say, in Waterford hurling, especially the club scene as well in recent years. Was it something that was always in the family, or did you go to the field yourself?
Well, a lot of people would know, and a lot of people wouldn't know, I suppose. We actually went to primary school in Tallow. So it's kind of a a touchy subject, I suppose, in a way. Like, but I know we played a couple of years underage with Coach Breeze, so joined Tallow and Shamrock GA. Like so, when I was under 13, I would have made the move over to Lismore. My father would have played underage with Lismore up to a certain age, and myself, Ray, and Stevie, the oldest brother, we moved over at that stage, like, and from then on, I suppose we were fully involved with Lismore from underage all the way up to senior level, like so.
And did you get much feedback? You know, like you said, you moved across when you were 13. Did you get much feedback, or did you ever have any hassle? Because obviously the GA is very tribal, and you know you see it within Waterford when a player transfers to another club. Did you ever get any negative feedback, or was it all kind of positive because you were so young?
Well, I suppose there would have been a bit of both. I suppose, like, see, at the time, none of us would have been involved with Waterford of any age group, like so. I kind of felt at the time it didn't really matter. But then, obviously, as you get older and you start getting into, say, the adult team with Lismore, and you're playing against, I suppose, fellas that you were in primary school with. But I like it's nothing really that kind of concerned any of us really. Like, it's only just if you ended up playing Tallow in championship games, there'd be a bit of, how would you say? I wouldn't say banter, like, but
a bit of
a bit of sledging, I suppose, yeah, in a way, like, but nothing that I'd be too concerned about, like, but like I've a lot of good friends over in Tallow and still do, like, we actually grew up beside Tommy Ryan. We would have been neighbours growing up, like, so we spent a lot of summers, I'd say nearly every day of the summer, inside in his garden playing hurling, like, so like that was probably where we started first, underage, I suppose, inside in his garden. And how I actually started playing in goal itself was in primary school. Tommy's sister Rachel would have been, say, the one driving the hurling in the primary school at the time, and I would have been 2 or 3 years, say, under the age of my eldest brother Stevie, like, so they were looking for a goalkeeper at the time for primary schools hurling. So I kind of got shafted into goal at that stage and never again came out of it. Like, so it was probably down to Rachel Ryan in a way for put me into the goal. Like, so, yeah.
And in recent years, obviously the Barry name with goalkeeping down my part of the woods is very famous, of course. And a similar thing happened to me, of course. My uncle Ray won an All Ireland in 1992 to 21. And from the minute I started playing hurling, I was put on goal purely because of him. And I would have played 3 years ahead of me under 21 and minor. We lost a few finals to
Yeah.
Ballygunner and that. Do you think the game, since you transitioned into goal when you were younger to now, like you see Stephen O'Keefe and how he controls the game, do you think the keeper's role has changed?
Oh Jesus, Seamus, there's absolutely no comparison, I suppose, and that's only saying my short time, I suppose, playing the goal. Like, but even from the likes of my own, say, clubmate Brendan Landers, like, say, from when he was playing the goal, like up until now, even like there's no comparison whatsoever. Like, I don't think. Like you mentioned, Saki there, like it's more or less like a quarterback now in American football. Like the way goalkeepers now control the game, the tempo of the game, puck outs, just even organising, your defence and organising around
You're like a
everything really.
general in a
Like,
sense.
yeah, like you come up and if you look at any stats in any game, that's another big thing. Like, puck outs won, puck outs lost, but like the goalkeeper actually has probably the most possessions in any game. So it's probably one of the most important positions at the moment, and probably will be for the future as well. Like, so,
with that, you're saying obviously you're like a quarterback, and you touched on the statistics for the puckouts. Do you feel sometimes keepers get an unfair rap in a sense of, if you have a half forward line and they're not winning the puckout, and say you go back training the following Tuesday and the manager pulls you aside and says, "Look, Seanie, we only won 40% for our puckouts." Sometimes you can only put so much or do so much on a plate for a player. Do you think sometimes keepers are looked at too much or over analytical on their performance?
in a way, yeah, you could agree with it, but I suppose like when you're in the position of goalkeeping, I suppose you're a lone ranger really. Like, you know what I mean? You're not marking anybody. You're there by yourself. Like, it can be a lonely place at times. I suppose you could say that, but yeah, like if you'd have to really get video analysis to look into, say, were my puckouts at the fault of only winning 40%, or could they have been put up to 70% if the lads out the field were, winning prime possession, like, or was it a miss-hit puck out? There's a lot to it, and I feel now there's more emphasis on it, than there ever was, because of the amount of possessions that, say, the goalkeeper has in, say, 60, 70 minutes, like, so I don't know. I suppose it worked both ways. Like, you'd have to look at, say, the goalkeeper, is his puck outs accurate enough? Are they going to where they're supposed to be going? And then you have to flip it over. And the lads in midfield, the half back line, half forward line, are they at fault for not winning primary position? I suppose is what you could. They're probably two things that you have to look at when you are analysing it. So it kind of works both ways, I suppose.
Yeah, when you're coming up, then obviously given the opposition, the county championship is obviously an open draw, so you can play anybody. When you're coming up against different teams, would you look into their penalty takers, or would you potentially look at, say, if you're playing Ballygunner, for example, and you knew Desi was going to be playing? Like, Desi's an awesome finisher. Or you mentioned the famous Tommy Ryan, who's known as a prankster around Waterford, on Waterford squads. Very famous for his phone calls, would we say. But like Tommy's he's a fabulous finisher as well. In my own club, Thomas Connors, of course. Thomas is a serious man for a goal. Do you look into players, or do you just try play what's in front of you?
I suppose the club scene, I'd say, is probably within reason. You're playing against different teams every year. You mightn't necessarily be in the same group as, say, the year before, or it's very hard to analyze like a club player as it is with intercounty players. Like, like obviously the big names, say, I'm sure teams that play against Lismore would have their homework done on Morris, who hits the penalties and frees for us. Vice versa, say the likes of Stephen Bennett with Ballysaggart, or Paddy Manny with Ballygunner. Like it's nearly easier to find clips of them hitting penalties, because they're involved in the intercounty scene, a lot more. Whereas, well, I suppose over the last 12 months, I suppose, with the club games being videoed, is it does make a difference that you can actually get access to the games. Like, you can see them live. But no, I think Barrett's one of the bigger intercounty names. Like, you'd struggle to really find
data
video clips of them hitting threes, like, as such. Like, but on the day, I suppose, with the club, my own personal experience, I kind of just play with what's in front of me, like, so.
And then obviously keepers are becoming more and more known for scoring nowadays. Like you see Owen Murphy, who's ridiculous stats for Kilkenny. You also have Quaid with Limerick. Mark Fannin, I think, scored something like 310 in the Wexford Championship last year. We actually played him in a challenge match and he scored against us up in the field and passage. Do you think, like you've seen in the football recently, the Monaghan keeper, I think his name, he went up and he scored a point from play. The keeper's the sweeper keeper, as it's called. If a keeper pushes out, you know, when an attack is up the other end of the field and the ball comes loose, especially if a team are playing a sweeper, like teams are looking at keepers to be able to score nowadays, which seems to be another contribution they can make. Is that something like you'd ever say, geez, if I get a ball 90 yards out or 100 yards, I couldn't really put that over, especially in far field with a bit of wind down into the river goal, as they call
it? Yeah, I suppose like it would be something that I'd really be looking into doing. But obviously in most recent years, like things have changed. That you see with defence, before it was break the tackle, clear the ball, whereas now it's nearly, you know, your keeper's behind you, move outside the goals, and it's another option as a pass rather than just thumping it back up the field. You know, give it back to the keeper. The keeper probably has 10, 15 yards before a corner forward even gets near him. Like, you know, has a clear view at what's in front of him, I suppose. But I don't know, you look on the flip side of it then and you come too far outside the goal and the play breaks down. Like the sliotar travels obviously a lot quicker than a Gaelic football would. And obviously players nowadays, club and intercounty, are way more accurate than what they used to be. The balls fly a lot quicker, like, you know, so like if I misplace the pass or whatever outside my goal, I could be 45 yards away from the goal and all it takes is one strike of the ball is inside the back of the net, like, you know, and you're the biggest, I suppose, whatever word you put on yourself, like, you know, for doing it. You know,
and with that, you said, like, the 2 points I'll touch on there. You said earlier the goal, and I've played it. It can be a very lonely place at times, and you're under a microscope. You see in the Premier League, David De Gea, world class keeper, makes one mistake, and everyone starts saying he's not good enough anymore and stuff like that. Would you be personally hard on yourself if you made a mistake or if you thought you could do better with a goal? And now, in my opinion, no one action ever determines an outcome in a match. So when people say, you know, if someone gets a goal or a point at the end, they won it. Well, it's all the work that was done beforehand. But would you be tough on yourself?
Yeah, I suppose you'd have to be, Seamus. The biggest thing, I suppose, is if you do, personally, like if you make a mistake in a game, is try wipe it as quick as possible out of your mind. Like, I probably would have had a thing, say, when I started in there first, that if I had made a mistake, and I made plenty of them, and still do, like, you know, there's nobody perfect, like, but try wipe it as quick as possible. When I was younger, I suppose, until I started getting in, say, panels with Waterford, like just with Lismore itself, like I would have, say, kind of nearly tried to get the ball out away from me as quick as possible, you know, after conceding a goal, like from a mistake or dropping the ball into the net, or, you know, rather than kind of gathering myself and, you know, get the next ball and try make it as perfect as possible. Like,
Yeah.
And I think I don't know, it's probably with experience as well, like, you know, over the years that I find that I'm after improving on that, like on a personal level. But you ask any goalkeeper, I suppose, now, that it's probably the next one is more important than the one that just went past you, like, you know. So I just feel you kind of have to keep yourself grounded and just wipe it as quick as possible, and then, you know, get yourself set and start to play again. And
I suppose
hope that it doesn't happen again.
It's a famous saying in the GA: the next ball is all that matters. The previous one is irrelevant at that stage.
Yeah. Absolutely, like it.
You mentioned, I'm interested to see, because there's a couple of different topics that I want to cover on this week's ILovesMeClubBoi. And the reason why I wanted to get you on is because you're quite a unique player in the sense of you've been involved with Waterford, but you've also had a bit of a, I suppose, not medical issues in a sense, but a medical condition was discovered in 2014. Can you talk a little bit what happened and when you started to notice things were happening to you?
Yeah. So most people that know me now know that I'm a type 1 diabetic. So back in 2014, it would have been the winter months of 2014. I started losing weight. Now, I would have struggled with weight growing up. Always would have had an extra couple of pounds on me. But weight kind of started falling off me, and I wasn't trying to lose it at the time, and constantly dehydrated, Seamus. I was drinking between 8 and 10 liters of water a day,
Jesus.
and that was just water. Like, that wasn't, say, my teas, my coffees, milk, or say a fizzy drink, or Lucas said sports or whatever. No, that was just water itself. Like, that was the only thing I was kind of tracking, and constantly going to the toilet. So any liquids that I was putting in was just flushing out. So I could be waking, no exaggeration now, maybe 7, 8, 9 times in the night time to go to the toilet, just constantly dehydrated then as well. So it would have been January 2015 then. I was at home, and mother said to me, oh, you don't look well or whatever. And she obviously noticed it no more than I did. I didn't take any notice of it, but I knew there was something not right. So I went to my GP, because my mother basically told me go to the GP. So
the good Irish mammy.
Yeah. So I was lucky in a way that she did, like, but went to my GP, and he asked me what he could do or whatever, and I was just telling him what was going on, and it was going on for about 4 months at this stage, like, which was fairly severe, like, and he said, I better test your blood sugar levels. You seem to have symptoms of being a diabetic. So, like, at the time, I hadn't a clue what diabetes was, or what it affected, or how it was there, or whatever. So he checked my sugars anyway, and they were, a normal person, as you call it, would be between 4 and 10 on the scale, like, but when he tested mine were 48, like, so
Jesus.
they were dangerously high. So he told me straight away, ring my mother and collect me at the doctor's surgery, like, and straight up to CUH in Cork. And I spent 8 to 10 days inside there. I can remember, definitely 8 days anyway, and went through tests or whatever, and they diagnosed me with type 1 diabetes. So
what was going through your head? Yeah, what was going through your head when you, like, when you're told to ring your mother? Like, obviously you go to the doctor, you have a chest infection, you're told to take an antibiotic and so on. But to be told to get collected and be brought straight down to Cork and then spend 8, 10 days, what was going through your head at the time?
Being honest about it, I actually didn't really think much of it, because, as I said, I didn't really know, like, the seriousness of diabetes, like, obviously if it's not treated or whatever. So on the other side of it, my mother was fairly panicked at the time, because, like, again, she didn't know much about it, only that I was going up to A&E in Cork with a letter to say that my blood sugar levels were extremely high, like. So arrived, and again, straight in, got put onto a bed straight away and hooked up to a load of fluids to hydrate my body and bring down my blood sugar levels to a normal level as quick as possible, because that was probably the first night I went up. That's all they were doing. But when the doctors came in the following morning, it kind of hit home a small bit that they couldn't understand how I didn't go into, say, a diabetic coma. And I kind of realized then, geez, this is very serious, like, so that I could have been in a coma. So they basically told me the only reason I didn't go into it was say that I would have been fairly active with training, and my sugar levels were just dropping enough during training sessions to keep me out of a coma as such, like. So you're very lucky. Then, oh, absolutely, very lucky, Seamus. But yeah, this year now is my 7th year, just January gone, having type 1 diabetes, like. So.
And is that a condition you'll always, that's what I was going to say, is it a condition you'll always have, type 1 diabetes?
Oh yeah. Never get rid of it. Like, there's no cure, there's no explanation to why I got it. Just my pancreas failed, and that's the end result of it. Just have to deal with it as best as possible.
And you'd have to inject then, do you?
Yeah. I'm on insulin every day. So every time I have a meal, I inject. So needles and more needles.
Well, we could say then that you don't have a fear of needles at this stage.
I know, I don't anymore. I used to, alright, but I've no choice now.
And you have a couple of tattoos as well, so I don't think you've that much of a fear of needles, if I'm being honest.
No, 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 no.
The other point I'll bring you back to there, just in touching base with that story, your training, and obviously it must have affected you because you did pull out at the time you were on the Waterford senior panel, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So it was back in 2013 when I got brought into the panel first. Michael Ryan brought me in and introduced me into the Waterford senior panel. I was doing my leaving cert at the time, and I suppose my mother wasn't too keen on the idea of it, but which were obviously like growing up, that was all you ever wanted to do, I suppose, was get involved with Waterford, like at that level. Like, so I was obviously going to go and get involved. So he asked me to come down to 2 training sessions in the week, Tuesday and Friday night. So I went down, and yeah, I was on the panel all that year. And the following year, then Derek McGrath came in, and that's the year that, say, the diabetes came into it. And I physically couldn't train properly. Like, obviously at that level, there was no way. Like, it was a new condition for me, like to try regulate my blood sugars. And I suppose the intensity of the training and that I wasn't used to, like between getting low blood sugars from, say, the intensity of the training, and then stepping out and having a bottle of Lucozade to bring them back up, and then you're still weak probably a half an hour later, and you're trying to go back into training again, and it just it was impossible for me at the time anyway.
Was it a tough decision to step away? Like you said, it's something every young fella and young girl, to play camogie or play hurling with your county, it's such a privilege. Not many of us get to do it. But was it a tough decision for you, or was it a case of health as well, and you just had to go with it?
Well, it was like, but I was fooling myself as well, telling myself that I could do both at that early stage of having diabetes. Like, it was probably a no-brainer at the end of it, like, because I was probably wasting my time and wasting the management time, really, like, the time that I was spending out, say, from the training field, like, because of it. So I suppose, like, getting my sugars and my health as best as I could was probably top priority at that time.
Yeah.
And then, like, I never stopped, say, training with Lismore. And that's not to say that the intensity of the training with Lismore was, a big drop off or whatever. But I still would have had episodes, and still do have episodes at training, say with the club or whatever, that you might hit a low blood sugar there in the middle of training, like, but step away and just get a sugary drink and get it into me as quick as possible, and wait till I'm stable again and just go back into training again. But I'm kind of blessed in a way that I do play in goal, I suppose, in that sense, like, because, like, say, the intensity of the game, I can have my bottle of Lucozade in the goal, or my glucose tablets and the whole lot inside the goal with me, that if I did ever feel I was dropping off or whatever, like, it's not as if I'm going to have to run off the side of the field and go into the dugout and get a drink or whatever. Like, I have all that with me inside the goal, like, so it's kind of handy that way, I suppose.
And do you think, like, with your preparation, then obviously, like, we're in the start of February here now, and most clubs are back pre-season now, and of course Ballygunner are playing this weekend, the All-Ireland final. Do you think, not that, would you be able to play outfield, Seanie?
Yeah, Jesus, Seamus, I would. Now I would. Now, have I any interest ever doing it? I'd absolutely hate it, I'd say. Completely different fitness levels than that. But, like, not having played out the field ever, like, the transition from the goal out the field, I don't think I'd have. It's not that I wouldn't have the touch or being able to handle the ball, but, like, the speed of doing things is just, there's no comparison whatsoever. Like,
and it's mad. It's mad when you look at Owen Murphy. Like, Scraggy plays centre back for his club.
Yeah. You take him, like, he probably would have played most of his hurling out the field before he transitioned into goal with Kilkenny, like, with the wit as well, playing Fitzgibbon out the field and Socky in the goal, like, he would have had some experience out the field, whereas I have absolutely zero whatsoever. Like,
I think Clinton Hennessy's the same. Clinton Hennessy played outfield, I think, for Ardmore as well.
he did actually, yeah, he did for a
Yeah,
while,
yeah.
yeah. So,
There's a few guys, because our own keeper here in my own club, of course, Eddie Lynch.
yeah.
Eddie, myself and Eddie would actually been the two keepers the whole way up underage, and Eddie would have been outfield and I would have been on goal. And then when it came to about 16, 17, Eddie went on the goal and I went out the field. Now, I don't know if that was a tactical decision, or was Eddie not, I wouldn't say not good enough, because I think Eddie's probably one of the fittest keepers in Waterford. He's in serious condition. But maybe it was on my behalf that I was letting in too many goals, or they thought, you know what, we'll just throw him in corner forward and get away with it, see what happens. But look, I haven't looked back. You know, I still obviously with the podcast now, it's a little bit harder with time and stuff. But I always try to get back to the club in any way that I can. But playing on goal, I think it takes a certain breed of fella. A guy I work with, he's from Kilkenny, and he often says it to me: if you play on goal, you're absolutely nuts. That's how he takes it. Now, when I look around the club scene in Waterford, I look at the keepers. He's not far wrong, I can tell you.
No, that's the perception most people actually have and always have, regardless of what sport you're playing. They always kind of say that, oh, goalkeeper, yeah, you're half capped, like. So,
well, if you think
I don't know,
about
is it true?
You could have a ball coming at you. I remember we were doing a bit of testing there a couple of years ago in one of the centres, and like you can hit the ball 80 to 90 miles an hour easily.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I remember I think it was my first year with Lismore playing senior, and we actually played passage, and one Kelly got a penalty. Well, mother of divine God Almighty, I didn't even see it. Straight in over my head it went. And I just said, oh my God.
I'll tell you a good one, because Eddie Lynch made his debut that day. It was out in Kill. And Dan was just after being named hurler of the year previously. And obviously he got, I think, 7 or 8 goals on the bounce. And it was Eddie's debut, and Eddie was in on the goal, and Noel was on Dan, and Dan was walking in. And Eddie was only telling me recently, Dan just looked at him, smiled and winked, and Eddie was like, Jesus Christ, hurler of the year, here we go, first game. It's quite an introduction.
Experience.
Yeah, and
yeah, absolutely.
I can vouch, because I remember when Kelly joined ourselves first, and we were in a minor final playing against Ballygunner at the time, and I was on the goal for the minor team, and I wasn't old enough to play adult hurling, but I was playing the minor.
Yeah.
And my uncle thought it'd be a great idea to get Kelly to take penalties on me.
Oh, Jesus.
And that's when Kelly was at his like, Kelly was only, what, 24, 25 then, like. And he hit me with one of them, and I ran off the goal. I wouldn't go back on the goal. He caught me in the tie, and I was crying. I was actually crying, like. And my uncle said to me, but if you could stop that. I said, I didn't stop it. He hit it at me. There was no technique involved there, like.
You had no choice.
You had no choice, like. And I think that's why people have a perception of keepers being a bit mad, because you remember Socky, the famous incident when Anthony Nash, obviously the rule was changed.
Unbelievable, unbelievable.
Like, Socky was literally 5 yards. If he was any closer, Nash would have hit him with the hurley, let alone the slither.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know about you. Obviously, since you're playing, the helmet regulations are in. Imagine playing on goal with no helmet a couple of years ago.
Oh, forget about it. Not a hope. Not a hope.
Like, you're talking about the slitters now. Oh man, the way the slitters are hit nowadays, the way the slither travels. You take back your debut against Passage. You imagine you no helmet and Kelly's hitting that ahead heighted.
Oh no, forget about it. Not a hope.
It's mad how, you know, like, you can look at certain aspects of the game and how it's changed and stuff, but I think the thing that never changes, regardless of what age you are, is the passion for the game. And like I said earlier on, you seem to be fairly positive, and you've been in the Waterford scene underage and at senior level, and of course you won an intermediate not so long ago with your own club, which must have been a special day as well.
Yeah, that was probably the highlight of my memories with Lismore so far. It was my first adult, I suppose, medal with Lismore. We won we won the Sergeant Cup, I suppose, my first year, but to win a county and a Munster final with Lismore was unbelievable, like, at intermediate level. But no, it was some experience. Now it was a great year.
Look, you see the weekend just gone, Moonkind winning. I always say it, no matter what grade you win at, it's something special because, like, even from my own playing days, like I would have my first year adult, we won our first ever junior title, and we were on before Ballygunner. Actually, we were playing the county final after us, and I remember thinking at that stage, like you said, you won the Sergeant Cup in your first year at Lismore. You're thinking, geez, sure, we'll just win something every year.
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't, like, we got relegated obviously the year before we won the intermediate, and that was probably one of the lowest points. And then to go straight back up senior and to get to an All Ireland semi final, with the same group of fellas that got relegated the year before was, it was unbelievable. It was some experience now.
And I suppose in GA and in life in general, like yourself with the medical condition and the type 1 diabetes, in order to experience highs, you have to have lows at times.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I experience them now probably on a weekly basis, Seamus, with the diabetes highs and lows. But I know, geez, it definitely makes the good days better. Like after having a low, and then when you get a high day, say winning something with the club, like it's unbelievable. It definitely makes it worth it. Definitely makes it worth it.
Yeah, and with that, what I'm looking to raise a bit of awareness about, because I think we can never do enough on it, is mental health within the GAA. And recently, of course, we had a new manager come in our own club, and his attitude towards mental health, I must say, is just outstanding. Do you find that in recent years, you spoke about Michael Ryan, and then you had Derek McGrath, and of course, you've Joxer, who's a very famous coach in your own club. Do you find that Dave Bennett has done a lot of coaching, that the old guard attitude before, and it's not their fault, it was just a culture thing, but do you think managers nowadays, they're more about player welfare? And like you said, you could be having a bad day, you go training, someone gives you a bit of I have a great relationship with our keeper, and you have a bit of a slagging and stuff like that. Do you think mental health attitude has changed in the GA in recent years?
Definitely. Jesus, Seamus, as I said like earlier, there's no comparison really from, say, go back 20 years ago. And as you said there, it's not their fault. It just wasn't highlighted enough, I suppose, back then. Whereas now, I feel, even as you spoke there about the old guard, like they're after adapting to this whole mental health thing now, like, and how important it is. Like, as you said, like, you go to the field there and you're not really feeling getting flogged around the pitch there for an hour and a half or whatever. This time of year, like, it's not easy. Like, but I just feel that management and selectors are more aware of, say, fellas had a tough day in work, or they just need a break. I feel it's definitely in a better place now than it ever was, and it probably will improve again, and hopefully it does. But it's probably credit to everybody that does get involved and highlights their issues and speaks openly about it. Like, it does help everybody else around them. Like,
of course, in a sense, it normalizes it. And one of those people, probably the most high-profile GAA player in recent years, was, of course, your very own Maurice Shanahan, who spoke very bravely and very honestly about his issues and struggles with mental health. And I think what that does for a younger generation, it shows them that even, like, and let's call a spade a spade, Maurice is an outstanding hurler. He a big, massive profile inter-county. That if someone that they put on a pedestal that they see as a hero can have low days and not feel so good, it must give younger people such a boost to say, well, actually, I feel like that sometimes, and it's okay because Maurice feels like that.
oh, absolutely. Like, and Maurice is like prime example, I suppose, for me, because being a teammate in that. But for him to speak out as much as he does and how he does it, like, it's definitely credit to himself, and to go through what he has been through and got out the other side, thank God. Like, but as you said there, like, that will affect, say, younger people, girls and boys, that some days that they're not going to feel okay, and just to know that it is okay not to be okay sometimes, and just to be able to speak out about it. And it's probably the best decision they will ever make is if they do speak out about it. So, it's a credit to Maurice in that sense, like, so.
And hopefully, of course, there's player welfare officers in at inter-county level, and I'm hoping you start to see it being rolled out at club, and that there'll be another initiative where, I know I was talking to someone recently and they said with soccer you have an over 35s. Now I'm not calling you old because you're in around my age, so I'm not going to say you're coming to the end of your career.
Jeez,
Especially
you have a few years on me yet.
jeez, don't be saying that now. But especially like with your position, you could play into your 40s if you wanted to. But there is, I suppose, a conception of outfield players, especially nowadays, that you see the county players retiring at 29 and 30, and it's getting shorter and shorter, the lifespan.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think we need to introduce more of a social side. I know there was a pilot down in Cork recently where you have an over 35s league. Now, I know some people would say you have junior A, junior B, junior C, but junior A, junior B, and junior C is for fellas come to end their career, and young fellas being bled in. And we need more and
Yeah.
more competitions to bleed young fellas in. But I think we should have a separate league, just a social element. Even if they just train, they don't even have to play games, just to keep people involved.
Oh, definitely. Like, even there, I know you're saying the over 35 league or whatever, but even say the social aspect of going up and getting flogged around the field at this time of year with the lads, and you're dreading it going up, but then the chat, 10-minute, 15-minute chat afterwards makes the hour and a half definitely worth it. Like, you know what I mean? The social aspect of it. So I definitely think, say, for fellas that can't really commit to, say, a full-time training 2 or 3 times a week, that maybe once a week or once on the weekend that they could meet up, have a few pucks, and maybe a 10-a-side game or whatever it is, like, just to get them out and get them involved, I suppose, after they finish, say, playing, say, at a high level, or just to keep them socially involved with the club or different clubs. And it's definitely something that should be looked into.
And like on that side as well, you mentioned you play against different clubs and different teams, and it's one thing that I find, regardless, I done the podcast last week in the River Cottage, and it was with Ballygunner on the preview of the All Ireland final. And as a passage man going in, you kind of have your back up a small bit. Yeah. You're wondering what's going to happen here, but like I've experienced it myself with tragedies in the village over the years, and the Ballygunner lads were the first people to be there and see if they could do anything. And I suppose that's one of the unique things. And like if I played you in the morning now and we had a disagreement or there was a bit of a fight, it always, when you go off the field, it's always dropped. And I think that's a great thing within the GA, the friendships that you make.
Oh no, definitely. That's probably the best thing about it, is the friendships you make. Like, like being involved in inter-county teams underage and adult level. Like, I'm not involved anymore, whatever. But geez, I'd still have good friends that are involved with Waterford at the moment, like, and in previous years and hopefully years in the future as well. Like, it's definitely, you have it out on the pitch, playing club championship, but like, Jesus, shake hands after the game and you could meet him below in Dungarvan for a pint or whatever, or down in Waterford for a pint. Like, there's no issue. Like, just drop the argument that was had out in the field, or the disagreement, and on you go. Like, you move on. It's definitely a good thing about the GA.
And with that, another thing I'm looking to highlight here, and I suppose it's been brought to my attention the last couple of years because I've gotten a lot of exposure to it, is respect within the GAA, and not just towards players, but referees. You look at rugby and you have the captain's approach and the respect, there's no cursing or anything like that. Do you think that could be looked at within hurling specifically itself, the tone that's used at officials? Because the way I look at it is, if you make a mistake on the goal, Seanie, your manager is going to tell you, head up, next ball, and so will your teammates. You'll probably tell yourself. Whereas a referee makes one mistake, everybody gets on top of the referee.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, there's always room for improvement. And like, I suppose I would have had a couple of run-ins with referees over the years too. But then, like, at the end of the day, there's one man in the middle and there's 30 players around him. He's bound to make a mistake at some stage. 60, 70 minutes, like, you're going to have an error. But yeah, I suppose when you take rugby and have a look at that, like, they have huge respect, I suppose, for the referee, and the referee gains a lot of respect from all the players. Like, there's no such thing as speaking out of turn, or what the referee says goes. And being honest about it, I suppose it probably could be looked at and probably
implemented,
yeah, more in hurling, like, and in GA football as well, like, but whether it's something that they will look into, I don't know, but they definitely deserve, say, more respect than what they get. Like, I done a couple of underage games there 2-3 years ago, and my God, like, there's no way I go back and do it again. Like,
yeah, I've done it previously. I've done a young whistlers course, and I actually done a bit of refereeing, and I couldn't do it with the abuse.
No, there's no way I would, like, I don't know how they do it with 30 grown men. And when you do an underage game, like, it's not the children, it's the parents.
It's
like,
the
you know what I mean?
parents. It's always the parents. Yeah.
But then, you go to an adult game and you have 30 grown men or women, and they're
not as polite.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's,
Well, I think some of the aspects we could look at changing is take away the timekeeping from the referee. At every senior and intermediate and junior game, I think this championship, there's usually 4 officials. There's someone usually controlling the scoreboard. Take the scoring responsibility away. A referee shouldn't have to write a score down, run out 60 yards, get back with play. You take away the time and the score element. The referee can see a lot more.
Oh, that's a great idea, to be honest. That's actually a very good idea. And it leaves them referee the game. It gives them more time to make a decision. You know what I mean? They don't have to be worrying about how long, was the game stopped. I need to add on time. Looking at the scoreboard, as you say, taking down the score, and say potentially I have a puck out and the ref is not ready, and
it slows the game down.
So that's definitely something they should look into.
And then the one thing that I have little notes here, and something that's after catching my attention is something you spoke about earlier, and it's something I've always struggled with in sports, is you spoke about weight issues. And of course, the famous 2 Johnnies now, of course, Johnny Sparks played minor football for Tipperary, and he talked about wearing a black sack to lose weight and wrapping himself in cling film because he was told he had to shed 2 stone for the county team. And obviously with jerseys nowadays, everything, I can tell you from experience, everything is getting more and more tight fit, right? And keepers, like years ago, a keeper, and this is no offense because I played on goal, you didn't have to be the fittest to play on goal. But like I said, we had fitness testing recently, and I can tell you Eddie Lynch is up in the top bracket of our fittest players. And that's just the way the game is going. But do you, like, with the weight issues, probably it ties in with mental health, but it's not talked about an awful lot in hurling because you have a group of 30, 35 fellas on a panel. And like sometimes, if we're being honest, you get brought into a room and you all get weighed and the results are kind of public. That there's a shame inside to that.
Oh, there is, definitely. As I said, I would have struggled big time with it, say when I was younger or whatever, but I'd say last year was probably the first year that I properly went about, keeping the weight off as such, like on a personal level, like. But say for kids there growing up, like, you're not always going to have 15, 20, 30 young kids like that are all going to be in great shape, like, you know what I mean? Like getting under 12s, under 13s to be wearing these skin tight jerseys, like, I think it's completely wrong. And that's only my own opinion. Like, obviously there's expertise, opinions gone into it, like, to say that, tight fit is definitely the way to go. You can't be grabbing the jerseys and this and that. But like, Jesus, for a 12 and 13-year-old young fella or girl to be put into a tight fit jersey there, and you have that extra bit of
course you're coming into teenage years and you're growing.
Yeah, like, it's normal, like, but I think it's how would you say, it's kind of been overlooked by, like, it's just, you have to fit into this jersey, like, or else, you're kind of an outcast as such, like. Like, I even if if I had the best physique in Lismore on the team, like, I actually still have a preference not to wear a tight fit jersey, like.
Right.
I'd often just wear a loose fit jersey, like, always. I just find it more comfortable. That bit more freedom inside them, like. That's only my preference. Like, but like, you look at the Ballyhale jerseys, they're not tight fit.
No, they're traditional Kilkenny.
Traditional jersey, like, now I'm not saying that's like everyone should go back to loose fit jerseys, whatever, but I like the fact that they're different. You know what I mean? They're different from everybody else, like.
I think more conversations like that, like this, will highlight it because, I have no problem speaking about it. I still struggle with my weight a lot. I constantly am watching what I'm eating and training. It's a part to me that I was even in the gym this morning, and I'm coming out and I'm thinking, I'm in okay shape and stuff. And then you have your shower or whatever, and you catch yourself in the mirror. And I've never, I've never been one to, believe I'm in great shape. I constantly doubt myself. I constantly putting pressure on myself. Last year I had a serious knee injury a couple of years ago, and I dropped 2.5 stone last year to try play hurling. And looking
Yeah,
back on it, it's the
yeah, yeah.
wrong thing to do almost.
Oh, I was in the exact same boat. The exact same boat. I'd be the same mentality as that. I lost 14 kilos last year,
Jesus.
and it was probably the best shape I was ever in. And then you're still doubting, from previous experiences, like of carrying that weight, you'd always kind of double guess yourself, like, am I in good shape, or can I be in better shape, or it's probably just from past experiences, like, but
I think there's a lot for the GAA to be said. And I think, the jerseys is one thing with the underage games. And I think another element, which I'll be touching on the podcast I Love My Club by, is the fact I don't think scores should be kept in underage games. You look at teams now, and I'm not going to pick out one club and say that they're dominating everything or say it's wrong, but I've watched games underage recent years where you see young fellas and young girls crying coming off a field because the score is so high that they've gotten bet by. And I think we have to have, again, we're talking about an over 35s or a social club, that if you want to have a first team, that's absolutely perfect. And the parents are well aware that if the kid's on the first team, they have to train whatever 2-3 times a week, and they're going to have to be relatively in shape. But I think we need to have, I wouldn't even call them B leagues or C leagues. I think we just have a league that's not competitive. You're still playing games, everyone's included, you're allowed as many subs as you want, and you have no scorekeeping, because there is a drop off when it comes to about minor. You'll have a couple of lads. Now, it's not saying they're not a good hurler. Like you said, they might just not be in shape, and they might not have the interest, or they might not want to train 3-4 times a week, watch what they eat, don't drink alcohol. And we need to include everybody, because when we lose those people from the age of 18, and now Lismore is a lot bigger than Passage, but I can tell you, if we lost a couple of lads, even to fill the junior A team, the junior B team, we'd struggle in the adult side.
yeah, like, I know you're saying Lismore is a lot bigger than Passage, like, but numbers wise, say, involved with the adult team isn't, where it was, say, when I started. Like, we had a senior and an intermediate team, and competitive in both grades, like, but there was a serious drop off there a good couple of years ago. Like, we're still have a senior team now, and say a junior A team or junior B team, but like, them lads now are training with us, and if they weren't training, we might have max 20 fellas at the field. Like, that's for a senior club. Like, you probably need your 30, 32 fellas at the field, and if them junior lads don't come training, like, if it kind of takes away the whole, say, the aspect of having a big panel, or like, because they're getting fellas involved, like. And then what we were seeing in recent years was lads that were quite happy to, say, play the junior hurling. It wasn't taken as serious. They might train, they might not train, turn up to a game. They kind of felt that if they did go training with the senior team, it was too much, for what they wanted. Like, there was no other option, like, for them. Like, so it's probably something that can be looked at. But then on the other side of it is, as I said, we don't have the numbers. Ye probably don't have the numbers. Like, there's only a certain amount of clubs probably in the county or in the country even have enough to be able to say, right, there's your senior panel. You might have an intermediate panel, and then you have a junior panel as well. Like, we wouldn't have that luxury. Like, so.
Well, even if you had an inter club league, like, where literally it could be a case of fellas that are coming to end their career, or people that aren't necessarily, like, if, especially in Ireland in recent years, we've had so many mixed nationalities living here, that it might be a case of, instead of saying Passage versus Lismore, it would just be East versus West, and it could be more of a way to generate people into the GA and get more people involved. Because it is very, I know from speaking to people, that they feel it's very exclusive, in a sense of, when you go and you see them 15 lads, 20 lads on the senior team, and they're in serious condition, and you have your junior A's, your intermediates, and not that it's any less, it's not, it's just, it's the speed of the game is what I believe is the difference. But you see it, and they're like, I want to play for Lismore, but both their teams are way more advanced than I am. They're way more physically fit. I can't play any hurling.
Yeah, no, like that's definitely a fair point to make. Like, no, like as you said there, fellas coming to the end of their career that they might feel that they could play it for another year or two, but obviously at a slower grade, like as you put it, like, the pace of the game is obviously a lot higher at senior intermediate level. But like if there was a league, as you said, it might only be East versus West. Like there's not that many clubs in Waterford, like, that people could maybe once a week, have a game, or even inside the Astronauts blowing WIT or
Exactly, just
something
something to
like that.
come
Like,
together that have always had of an interest, but we're kind of not daunted, but nearly intimidated to join the club.
Yeah, like that's probably the word to have, I suppose, is intimidated. Like, because it probably is intimidating for some people. Like, and as you said there, like, there's a drop off at minor level for most clubs. Most clubs would have, you could have maybe 25 lads playing underage, and then when it comes to adult level, like you might only get maybe 8 or 9 of them that would stay playing, and you're kind of wondering why. Now, obviously, lads just lose interest as well, but like the intimidation, I suppose, of going into an adult team for a 16, 17-year-old is, it's high.
Of course.
Maybe there was something like else put in place that them other 10 or 15 lads, might want to play at a lesser level or a slower level,
And I was involved in coaching last year. I was a selector and I kind of trained the junior B team. We're very lucky now. We've 3 adult teams at the moment, and I was a selector with the junior B team. And we got bet against Ballygunner in the quarter-final in Ballygunner, and their manager said after, and it's the first time I ever really heard anyone say it. He said the most important team in a club is not your first team. If you've 2 teams, your second team is the most important. If you've 3 teams, your third team. Because like you said, if 30 lads in the junior B go train and 10 of them go to the junior A, and they have the numbers then for trainer to play an in-house match, and then 10 lads off the junior A or the intermediate go to the senior, and they're at a level where they can play both. Like, it's all about inclusion, and I think there's a role for everyone in the club, whether you're good at finance or you want to do secretary work or fundraising. Like, there's a place there for everybody, and I think. And senior is the pinnacle. Don't get me wrong. We both know that senior is the be all and end all. But I think we need to really hammer home that there is a place for everybody.
Oh, definitely. Like, and I know you're saying like the senior level is the be all end all, but like if you actually look at the intermediate championship in Waterford, like it's actually probably more competitive in recent years, I think, on a personal level, from watching, say, the West anyway. Like, I haven't probably seen much of the Eastern competition, but the Western intermediate is very competitive. Like, there's not much between any of the teams.
Yeah, the West is savage, in fairness, yeah.
At that grade, like, so, as you said, like, there's definitely room for everybody within the GA. Like, as you said, like, people are good at fundraising. They mightn't have any interest in playing the game, but like for finances and organising and all that kind of stuff, like, there's definitely room for everybody.
And in recent times with COVID, of course, the magical word that everyone is fed up of hearing over the last 2 years and a bit, the GA has had a massive role. And of course, I see Lismore as a country club, the same as my own club, Passage. And we play such a pivotal role in getting people out of the house, whether it's going to games or going up to watch training, and the buzz that comes around when the draw is made this year and pre-season comes. We don't realise, I suppose, the outlet it gives people. And like that, we're saying about inclusion. Like, it must be great for yourself when you see kids up training in the field, or they're coming to your matches and they're talking about the buzz leading forward to a quarter-final, semi-final, to see the effect that it has. Because it's only when you're older you start to notice how much, I suppose, we play a role in our communities.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Like, as I said there earlier, that, with the games being streamed live and giving people the option to actually watch the game live, that, say for the older people of Lismore or Passage or any club team, like, they're getting the option to actually see the game on television rather than having to maybe travel, and they mightn't be physically fit enough to go to the game. But the fact that it was on, and they're not missing out on anything, they can see what's after happening. They might go down to the pub, they might meet somebody in the shop. Oh, geez, did you see X, Y, and Z happening? And they're included in that sense, like,
And then that's been well highlighted with mental health issues, and I think that's why we've a massive part to play in the mental health Another thing we'll look forward to is the coming year's championship, and I hope myself to have a couple of shows leading into it. What's the ambition for Lismore personally, for yourself, and for Lismore overall this year?
I suppose go a step further than last year is the obvious one. A quarter final last year. Like obviously every club team in Waterford is there to try beat Ballygunner. There's no point in beating around the bush. But I think it's step by step, game by game for us is the big thing this year. Nothing too complicated. As I said, like Ballygunner is obviously the pinnacle of Waterford hurling at the moment, like, and they're in an All-Ireland final this weekend, and best of luck to them in that as well. Obviously, I fancy him to win as well. But no, just for us this year, I'd say Seamus is just to get an extra step further this year, and hopefully improve on some of our performances from last year. That's probably it.
And who the draw, of course, has been made. Who did you get for the group this year?
Yeah, so we have Rowan Moore and Dunhill.
So of course you would have faced Rowan Moore in the quarter final. You'd be looking to get a bit of payback.
Hopefully. We own one or two now. They're after beating us the last 3 or 4 years now in a row. Like so, yeah. I look forward to that one anyway.
And Dunhill are back up senior, of course. I've watched them a lot in the intermediate championship the last couple of years, so they'll be coming up, with high hopes and hoping they can make an impression senior.
Oh, absolutely. There'll be no pushover either. The likes of Michael Harney and Shane Casey as well. I'm actually working with the two lads inside in GSK at the moment as well. Like, so that'll be interesting when that comes around as well.
Of course, you have Eamon Speedy as well. He's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, there'll be no joking, as you said. Like, they'll be up to hopefully stay up for themselves, like, and prove a point that they belong up in senior. Like, so I know it'll be interesting. There's no easy group this year, so.
Yeah, and especially with the format after changing now that everybody goes through the top out of each group, and then there's a preliminary quarter final, as you call it.
Yeah.
I suppose in one sense, I need to be completely. I Love My Club is not affiliated with Passage at all. It's purely my baby. But Passage got the group of death, they're calling it, De La Salle and Ballygunner. Yeah. Tough one for Passage.
Yeah, but then you have to take into account that, like, De La Salle were in relegation last year as well, so they'll be there to prove a point and get back to their best as well, like, so better ye than us in that group.
And then looking at the clubs, the last couple of years, it's a question I put to everyone. Who's the best club hurler you've ever played with?
Played with?
Yeah, with Lismore itself.
Jesus, has to be Morris. Morris Shannon, by a mile. Jesus, yeah. He turns it on every day we play. Every day.
His scoring stats are just ridiculous. Like, I know Buff Egan does a lot of coverage on the club scene, and like Buff loves to come down and watch Lismore play. But
yeah.
Like you see posts being put up. Mar Shannon scores 114 or 14 points. Like, personally, it's for another day, another topic. But I don't know how himself and Noel were dropped in the Waterford. I think it was a travesty given their experience. But Mars must be the most, what would you say, the most ruthless player every year, without fail, most consistent club player within Waterford.
Oh yeah, definitely, and not just because obviously he's my teammate and clubmate or whatever, but geez, when you, as you sit there and you look at the stats, like they're off the charts every single year. Like with the last 10 years, he's definitely been the most consistent club player in Waterford with the last 10 years anyway, I think.
And especially with the treatment he gets.
Seem like he's. Oh, absolutely. He takes punishment. He gives it too now, but probably deserves some of it now. But I know, all joking aside, like, but his stats they're crazy, like, and they're not slowing down anytime soon. So hopefully now he can stay firing for us again this year.
I remember one story. We played ourselves a good few years back now. We were playing in Fairfield, and we were actually, I think you were giving us a trimming, or we were giving you a trimming, and you came back. We were hammering
16 points.
you came back, and Morris got a free from about, I'd say, 90 yards facing down into River goal. And I was corner forward, and I was told to go out and just abuse Morris before he took the free. So I went across. I tried to stand on the slither. I called him a load of abuse. He put the ball over, and he just turned around and he said, "Not today, kid." And I just went, I mean, like, I literally, everything I could have said, I said to him. I was like, "Did you watch Coronation Street?" Just random stuff to try to distract him. And straight over the black spot. And I was like, "You know what? You have to give him credit when credit's due." Like,
yeah, geez, he thrives on that as well. Like, so no, he's definitely the best I've played with anyway. So.
And who on that note then, who'd be the best you played against in the club scene in Waterford?
Oh, Jesus. That's a tough one now. Tough one.
I suppose for you it's probably going to be a forward, given the fact that you face forwards on a regular basis.
Yeah, like there's not. Geez, I don't know. Would there be any one player stand out? Because for the simple fact that you don't play the same team year in, year out.
Of course.
You'd have to give a mention, I suppose, to Ozzy and Jamie Byrne. I suppose would be probably the two that I put up there. Now I faced Dizzy last year, and Jesus Christ, he's getting better every game. Like,
his speed is
just to be slowing down at all. Oh my God, like his footwork is unbelievable now. So there wouldn't be one. Maybe in years to come, if I was asked the question, I might have one player that I'd pick, but at the moment I'd say there's not. But you'd have to look at Ozzy, Byrne, and going on last year, Dizzy as well. Like, so.
Very good. And then there's two more bits to the podcast that we're going to try and make sure we get everyone involved with. And one of them is looking at your own club, Lismore. Is there any unsung hero within the club that you feel deserves a mention, that maybe does a lot of work behind the scenes that's not known around the county, but they'd be known in the club? Is there anyone like that you'd love to give a shout out to say the work that they do is brilliant, or is it a couple of people?
Joe Tobin, I suppose. Probably the biggest character in Lismore. A lot of people around the west of Waterford would know him. He's a retired postman, but Jesus, like the lift he gives people when he's around is just. He's some character now. He's some character, and he does the water for us. With the last, he's there with 10 years, I'd say. Any management team that comes in, Joe is always the water boy as such, and he probably drinks more than he hands out. Like, but that's a different story. Like, but I know, like, Jesus, even this time of year, like if you were running around the pitch and you're not feeling it, and the next minute Joe could come out with anything, and you could be bursting laughing there for fucking 5 minutes laughing at him. Like. But I know, definitely they're the fellas that kind of make it worthwhile, like, you know what I mean?
Of course.
So,
and with that, we've a quick fire round to finish off. Just a couple of quick questions. I know from speaking to you already what the first one's going to be. Club or county?
It has to be club, James.
I knew you'd say that. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, myself and Seanie we worked together briefly with the famous Ned Power and David Sutton, both Mount Sion and Delasame. And there used to be a lot of music floating around the office, and sometimes I used to butcher songs now before you get in there. But Byzone or Westlife, Seanie?
Westlife, Seamus, all day long.
And you know what? And he puts it on Instagram, so I have no problem saying it. Ned Power is the biggest Westlife fan in the world. He absolutely loves Westlife.
He loves them.
Barry's tea or Lions tea?
James, is that even a question now? Is Lions even a tea bag?
But that's okay. See, that's how both of us, our second name is Barry. A blah or a roll?
I'd probably go with a roll.
Do you know what? I wasn't going to say it, but I will. That's the cork coming out, you know. You have to. That has to be a blah.
The west of the county.
the west of the county, yeah. Well, then I suppose the next question I might have to tailor going forward for Westgate: Tramore or Dunmore?
Tramore.
Tramore. The Greenway or the Fairway?
Greenway.
Greenway. Alfies or Elveries?
Elveries.
Elveries, yeah, a few people have gone with that. Look, they're all the quickfire questions. I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. I love your positive attitude out with life and in sports in general. Like I said, you're always smiling when I see you. You've had your ups and downs with medical issues, and you spoke about your weight. You spoke very openly, and I want to thank you for that. And I just think you spoke about Joe as a massive character within Lismore. I think personally you're a massive character in Lismore. Keep doing what you're doing, and I wish you all the best of luck for the coming season.
Thanks a million, Seamus. Thanks for having me.
Wherever you're listening, whether it be Ballyduff or Ballygunner, Passage or Portlaw, Dungarvan or Dunhill, tune in to I Love My Club Boy, the podcast that brings you closer to camogie and hurling in the Waterford club scene. Don't forget, hurling is our passion.